A wildlife camera's too good. Camera companies are masters at tempting us with shiny new features, and it's working. But are we really seeing a dramatic difference in our wildlife photos? Are we at that point where the upgrades are just fine-tuning? Today, I'm exploring the diminishing returns of camera tech, the relentless pursuit of more, and what it all means for capturing the beauty of the natural world. If you're new to the channel, I'm Will, and I followed my heart to Africa 27 years ago to photograph its beautiful wildlife and landscapes. And this channel is about life photographing Africa. From the moon landing to the decisive moment, photography has captured humanity's greatest triumphs and most intimate memories. But as technology races forward, are we reaching a point where the next giant leap is really just a small step? They say the best camera is the one you have with you, and the 35mm format, what we now call full frame, luckily fell into that happy place where portability met reasonable optical performance. Using widely available cinema standard 35mm film stock, the first full frame camera was released all the way back in 1913. For most of the last century, the ability to capture light came down to film stock. The big moments were Ektachrome in 1946 and the C41 process in 1972. Apart from that, not much happened, and the progress was all in the lenses and the cameras. Nikon introduced the famous F-series SLR in 1959 and took the professional market by storm, dominating into the 1970s. Canon only started making its first SLRs in the 1960s, but it wasn't until the introduction of the F1 in 1971 that they really mounted a challenge. The camera war, the one that's still raging today, had started. By 1998, the tech was at its peak, and there wasn't really much point in upgrading your camera. And in fact, I shot this same Minolta SRT Super from the mid-80s all the way to 1996. But then, something amazing happened. In 1975, Kodak engineer Steve Sasson invented the first self-contained digital camera.
Well, turn down your mini-disc player, fire up your Newtons, and listen up, because they're not playing grab-ass anymore. Kodak is back.
And in one of the great ironies in the world of photography, Kodak chose to protect its massive investment in film at the expense of its market leadership in digital. Digital photography's growth was gradual, and I got my first DSLR, a Pentax K100D with 6 megapixels in 2006, and shot with it all the way through to 2014. The primary focus was on enhancing image quality and resolution, the megapixel wars. And 20 years later, we find ourselves at another pinnacle of camera technology, where the introduction of new and impactful photo-first features has become a challenge.
We're talking meta-knowledge. Cameras that automatically enhance the color of the grass because they know it's grass.
The Nikon Z8 and Z9, the Canon R1 and R5 Mark II, the Sony A1 and A9 III are so well-rounded that it's hard to see what more can be offered outside high-speed, action-centric fields. The industry's shift towards video functionality is undeniable, as manufacturers appear to be positioning video capabilities as the central selling point for their flagship models. My question is, with the recent move from DSLR to mirrorless, have we reached another 1990s-like technical plateau for the photograph? Or, perhaps more accurately, have we reached a point where we don't really need too much more from the 35mm camera? There's no question that for wildlife photographers, the R5 II represents a good improvement, but nothing near as groundbreaking as that step between the last DSLR and the first truly capable mirrorless camera. I can see very good reasons for photographers to upgrade, but unfortunately, I'm not one of them. After a lot of thought, I cancelled my order for a few reasons. 1, the limited supply of batteries. 2, reports of the camera freezing, a problem I highlighted in my R5 review 4 years ago, and one that's cost me a lot of crucial shots. And 3, the fact that I'm not replacing a camera. I'm adding one to the entourage, and I can't defray the costs. And 4, I don't feel that pre-capture or 30 frames per second will make a material difference to my mode of shooting. Now, don't get me wrong. I'll almost certainly buy an R5 Mark II or maybe its successor at some point. But I'm no longer in a frantic rush. What I have, for what I shoot, is already very good indeed. Shipments of cameras peaked in 2010 at 121 million units and have plummeted to an estimated 9 million units in 2023. The market has gone off a cliff. And thinking about the pressures in this smaller market, it's no surprise that manufacturers are seeking to consolidate R&D and manufacturing costs by producing hybrid models that appeal to a wider base. And I think the big short-term wins for most of them will be successfully persuading existing DSLR holdouts to finally switch to mirrorless and mirrorless mount lenses. There's also a largely ignored section of users out there grimly hanging on to their DSLRs who want a photo-first, APS-C, professional-level body at a lower price point. With the current state of the market, I have to wonder if this camera will ever come. From my perspective, the jump from DSLR to mirrorless was groundbreaking and absolutely and fundamentally worthwhile. The jump from the R5 to the R5 Mark II is less compelling. I'm also suspicious that the continued lack of supply of many lenses, the batteries and camera bodies, is a handy way to stay profitable by only making what's absolutely necessary. If we think about the technologies exhibited in mirrorless cameras, they've mostly become pretty mature. Early cameras saw massive jumps in resolution, but now it's at the point that lenses can't really resolve any more of that detail. And I think here, processing power and AI may step in. If the camera and the lens offer 80% of the details, AI could surely estimate the remaining 20%. And Canon's digital lens optimizer already does similar things by correcting optically imperfect lenses with excellent results. Will we get to a point where AI supplies the details that physics can't? I think the inclusion of neural upscaling in the R5 Mark II points in that direction, and the inclusion of more AI tech is definitely one of the areas where we might still see some very big advancements. However, there's plenty of improvements we could still definitely use. Longer lasting batteries are quite high on my list, and photography and video at night are still incredibly poor. And I'm also certain that more intelligent metering systems will emerge. We already have AI-powered autofocus that recognizes subjects. What about an AI-powered metering system that recognizes that a flying bird against a bright sky requires a brighter and not a darker exposure? It's sure to come, I hope. And in terms of frames per second, I think we're almost there, but now I spend more time culling images than actually taking shots. Dynamic range is not as good as it could be, and I still hope for some advances down the road, but specifically, with regard to the current 35mm format, we've had 20 years of impressive leaps, and this points to something much larger and perhaps more nuanced. The next few generations of cameras will come close to being able to capture most of what's possible, and if they can't, they're going to fill in the gaps themselves. One has to ask the question, at what point does a photograph stop being a photograph? And is it just me, or do some of you feel that technology has firmly claimed the art of wildlife photography? I mean that we've been chasing aspects of the photograph that are delivered by the latest and greatest equipment. Things like frozen moments of action hinging on excruciating levels of sharpness, wildlife portraits with incredible detail. And to some extent, to achieve this, one needs to have paid the entry fee. but we've already seen a massive democratization of fast-action photography over the last 20 years. Once the cameras fill in the details and deficits of light and lens, manage the subject selection, the metering, the focusing, and these photographs become effectively ubiquitous, it seems inevitable to me that the criteria for what's considered artistic and good in wildlife photography will evolve beyond the novel capabilities of the 35mm format. And that is probably a very good thing indeed. Richard Avedon once said that all photographs are accurate, but none of them is the truth. But I have to ask now, are we near the point where no photographs are accurate and none of them is the truth? Of course, we can counter that with a quote from one of my favorite photographers, Ernst Haas. He said, "A picture is the expression of an impression. If the beautiful were not in us, how would we ever recognize it?" And in that sense, it probably no longer matters. I think what this means for wildlife photographers is something that we always knew was true, but conveniently set aside as newer and better cameras gave us shots that we could only dream about a few years ago. And that's the fact that the bottleneck will likely be ourselves, our artistic vision, our ability to endure hardship in pursuit of a shot, our ability to learn, to observe, to approach, to respect and be patient, our ability to see and react, and most importantly, our ability to find wildlife and express the beauty of the impression it makes upon us. And I know that in my own case, it's not the lack of the Canon R5 Mark II that's holding me back. It's most definitely me. So, are we approaching the end of technological progress in wildlife photography? I don't believe that for 1 second. But we're probably taking a breath for a while and nearing the point where the camera no longer makes the difference. The future of wildlife photography will be about you.